I woke up to the sound of helicopters. Earlier, girls had woken up to the sounds of gunshots. Just 2 blocks away from my campus that morning, terrorists had burst into a synagogue and murdered people we knew with meat cleavers. My school secretary's husband was murdered. My principal's study partner of 20 years was killed. My teacher's son-in-law and young grandchild were there. Her son-in-law was grievously injured. His son had managed to crawl out and run home to tell his mum. One of the terrorists was the guy who worked in the supermarket a few blocks away. He sent us the fish order every week. One girl had staggered into school, shaking. She lived off campus and had walked past the synagogue as the attack was taking place. She saw a bloodied man running out and he shouted at her to run away. Run she did, and as she ran away, she heard gunshots. We were in shock. 2 terrorists had been caught. They thought there was another one who had escaped and was lurking around waiting to murder some more people. Soldiers and police were locking down our campus, analyzing the weak spots in the perimeter fence. We were scared and panic-stricken. Classes were cancelled and everyone just walked aimlessly around campus, dazed and mourning. My principal was in school when he found out that his study partner was murdered. In Orthodox circles, study partners shavruto share an unbreakable bond and become brothers. He'd learned with him every day for the past 20 years. He walked into our classroom looking 30 years older than he did the day before. His face was ashen white. He was haggard and haunted. His wife told us that every day he would go back to that same synagogue and learn there, alone, an empty spot near him. He couldn't bring himself to get another study partner. We didn't know if there would be a repeat attack. My program was on lockdown for that entire day. Other schools were on lockdown for a week. Some parents made their children come home. The tension stretched on for weeks, and we walked down the streets with one eye over our shoulder. It was the scariest school lockdown I'd ever lived through. I was in my 5th period biology class. The door to my biology classroom was outside on the 2nd story, near a bridge that overlooked the senior patio, which was a large outdoor place for students to eat lunch. It was lunchtime for half of the school, so we were able to hear the students talking and laughing. It was a gloomy day, very cloudy and windy. A thunderstorm was approaching, but it hadn't started raining yet. Suddenly, the talking and laughing from the lunch patio changed. We heard the students screaming, loudly. My teacher looked out the window and she saw all of the students who were eating outside running into the 2nd gym, which was right next to the lunch patio. Our teacher assumed there must have been a tornado, so she told us to get under our desks and cover our necks. A few seconds later, we heard the intercom turn on. A voice said, "Code Red," and the intercom hung up. Code Red means a lockdown at my school. My teacher had us all hiding in the corner out of view of the windows. My teacher had to crawl on her stomach to lock the door, close the blinds, cover the window on the door, and turn off the lights. It was obvious this wasn't just a drill. Most of us were crying. We were terrified. When the school is under a code red, students aren't allowed to be on our phones, but some students in my class disobeyed that rule. They Googled what was going on. There was a news alert of there being an active shooter at a high school. Our high school. The school was very quiet. It was very eerie. You could hear a pin drop. About 15 minutes after we were put under a lockdown, we heard multiple helicopters flying over the school. All nearby police officers were told to come to the school. The road outside of the school was closed because parents were lining up around the gate surrounding the school crying for their children. After what seemed like hours of sitting in the silent classroom, our door was broken down despite it being locked. Men ran in with large guns in their hands, the ones with lasers at the top. It was the SWAT team. My teacher wasn't wearing her school ID that day, so they pinned her to the ground and searched her. The SWAT team told all of my classmates to put our hands on our heads and to not move them. They made us get in a line, one SWAT member at the front of the line, one at the back. They said something along the lines of, "We're getting you guys out of here," and we all ran in a line through the halls as fast as we could, down the stairs, and out the main entrance. When we made it to the parking lot, there were tons of police officers and emergency personnel. Parents were still surrounding the gate. It turns out there wasn't actually a shooter. A student at the middle school next door prank called 911, saying that there was a shooter in the cafeteria of my school. A picture of part of what was said during the 911 call. The campus silence had enveloped the usually lively corridors, typically filled with the buzz of lunchtime. That day the school's doors were shut, windows were covered, and classrooms were devoid of students. Peering out of the window of our second-floor classroom, the question marks floating in our heads were creating an unease within us. In the morning hours, the school's announcement system, in a calm tone, had declared, "The school is closed due to an emergency. Students and teachers, stay in your classrooms and away from the windows." However, no explanation had been given for the closure. Rumors circulating among students suggested a possible threat or attack. Eyes of the students darted between each other, and the hallways emptied. The main doors on the ground floor were closed. Security guards were on watch. Helicopter sounds from above intensified the anxiety. After a while, one of the school's security guards walked through the classrooms, instructing everyone not to sit near the windows and to remain silent. As students looked at each other, this information only added to the confusion. With the swift entrance of a teacher into the classroom, her face pale and troubled, she said, "I don't know what's happening, but you are safe here. There seems to be an external threat. Please remain quiet and wait." Then quickly left the room. Silence prevailed inside the classroom, students whispering to each other and staring at the door. As the hours passed, the uncertainty that no one knew what was going on deepened our fear. When siren sounds were heard, students momentarily held their breath, but the sirens belonged to security forces coming to further secure the perimeter. The hours-long lockdown eventually ended with an announcement from the school administration declaring it safe. However, the impressions left behind, the uncertainty and fear-filled moments of that day, accompanied the students for a long time. The school never disclosed what had happened, leaving students to create their own nightmares. Earlier this year, a student entered our school with a gun. Our school isn't new to violence. We're renowned for great education and diversity. Heck, I'm evidence of that as a queer 13-year-old in their ELP program, which is basically a gifted program that allows middle school students to learn high school material and get a head start on things like the IB and AP programs, but also for violence and crimes. Fighting is so common that students have to be in class or in detention for the first or last 20 minutes of each class period, and the opposing team brought a police officer to a football game. The locker rooms are so full of weed smoke that you can't even enter without getting high. Same for the only non-binary restroom in the building. According to my gendered friends, the gendered restrooms have similar problems with vaping. People used to smoke every drug under the sun in the secret stairs until they put cameras in. Then they moved to the N-Bay bathroom since it can lock. As an N-Bay, I find it annoying, to say the least, so the lockdown wasn't a surprise. Around 12:15, a student, probably an ELPer, reported a juvenile with a gun in the bathroom. The school went on lockdown pretty much immediately. It was scary, I suppose. I was in the library since I was at lunch, and that's where I like to hang out during break, so it didn't really affect me. I just tried to read. Everyone in the halls at the time got shared into classrooms and the library, and so the library got really loud and full. A few people tried to keep their heads down, but not most. Everyone was making jokies and laughing. I'm pretty sure everyone was terrified. No one really understood what happened until afterward. That's where the fear sank in, knowing what might have happened. The kid was arrested and no one got hurt, but it was terrifying after the fact. Now, our school is slowly becoming more and more of a police state. That's what really scares us all, that could happen and what lengths people will go to keep it from happening. Subscribe to my channel and don't forget to turn on notifications to see you in the next story.